Welcome back to the Rollout. I'm Lindsay Rousseau.
And I'm Genevieve Marie. Welcome.
All right. So we have such a fun show today. I mean, I say that every week. I mean, let's be honest, every week the show is fun, but
It's
like I
never
feel like
live.
today is going to be extra fun.
Today is something that I think you and I both gel really well with. Like we just love it. So today we are talking about creature and fantasy makeup and what it's like to be a MUA, so the makeup artist, and what it's like to be the character actress or the model. And our two guests are absolutely fantastic. But before we get into that, let's do our sponsors. Lindsay.
Yes. So as always, Fabled 42 is powered by Vorpal Board. So our layouts and everything. And when you stay tuned for Realms of Ugador at 6:30, you'll see the virtual dice and everything. So thank you to Vorpal Board. And then we've got Griffin Co. Obviously, we don't see a lot of their stuff here, but we will see them in a upcoming show. And then I guess let's just do a little news.
Yeah, so let's dive into the news. So I feel like I talk about it all the time, but I'm just so excited.
Is this your Kickstarter again?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
Not my Kickstarter again, unfortunately. But that Afro Fantasy Kickstarter does end on November 12th. So again, whoever wants to get in on that, do it. It looks amazing. Also, there is I believe they're also doing an expansion that is sort of like an Afro fantasy version of like Hogwarts, like a magic school, and that looks amazing as well. Again, it's for D&D 5e. And it's unofficial, of course. It's a Kickstarter. I'll find the info that we can link into chat. But okay. My news, again, I talk about it a lot, is Cyberpunk 77.
Oh, yes.
Lindsay, you're like, oh, I know what she's going to say. So unfortunately, Cyberpunk 77, yesterday we heard that it is delayed until December 10th, and that makes me very sad. However, game devs are asking people to be kind after receiving death threats over Twitter. So please
don't. Game devs work so hard. They work the worst hours. Please don't harass game devs. My roommate is a dev. Please don't do that.
First of all, they're people. Second of all, they're people who work more hours than I can even imagine under horrible deadlines.
Yeah.
So the reason why that it's being delayed is that they need to make sure that everything works correctly and that every version is going to run smoothly. They were aware that it might seem unrealistic when someone says 21 days can make a difference with such a massive and complex game, but it really does. The release version is still finished. It's still in gold stage, but CD Projekt Red has been developing further updates for the day of the game's release. So they just need 21 more days, and apparently
they can wait that long.
Days and we'll get our Cyberpunk, maybe.
Yeah.
Also, I'm still willing to wait.
Yeah, I mean, we all are, honestly.
I just want the game.
I know. All right. Well, one thing you don't have to wait for is Fantasy Flight has previewed their Darth Maul for their Star Wars Legion game. So pretty soon they are going to be releasing a new Darth Maul figure for people to add to their collection, along with Sith droids. So, him and his minions can hunt down and destroy the Jedi forever. So with this expansion, Darth Maul is now able to do your bidding as part of your separatist army. You can bring him to life on the battlefield. Apparently, the details of the painting and everything on the mini are just really impressive. And it can be assembled into distinct poses, and there's different head options. So for those of you who love Fantasy Flight and love Star Wars, this seems like a really fun thing to do. So and it's also going to be a huge expansion. This is part of the Darth Maul and Sith Probe Droids Operative expansion. That's a mouthful, but there you go. All right. Okay. So yeah, let's introduce our two amazing guests for today.
Yes. All right. Our first guest for today is the amazing and lovely, and also my friend, Morgana Ignis. She is an American screen and stage actress best known for playing dark, eccentric, and visually transformative characters in the comedy, science fiction, horror, and fantasy genres. She is often noted for her tall, slender, androgynous body type and versatile physicality. Ignis stars in the film Severus Snape and the Marauders from 2016 as multiple featured demons in IFC series Stan Against Evil from 2016, as Edgar in the Curious Creations of Christine McConnell 2018, and Puppeteers Ned in the Disney Plus series Earth to Ned, and that's
Woo!
2020. She works with Jim Henson.
I know. That's so exciting. All right. And then our other guest is Keaghlan Ashley, who is a special effects makeup artist, this was so exciting. She was a fan favorite on Sci-Fi's hit show Face Off and was a contestant on season 7 and 11 All Stars. She works in the film and TV industry as an on-set makeup artist, but also works as a freelance character designer and sculptor and painter. And then when she's not doing all of that, because she has more time apparently, she works with the YouTube and cosplay community to bring pop culture characters to life. And she has clients such as Marvel and Warner Brothers and BBC America and so many amazing things, which we will get into today. So, oh my gosh, thank you, ladies, so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having
me.
Yes, I mean, we have such a dazzling lineup of guests. I'm so excited. So let's jump into it. How did you guys first get into doing, like, I know Morgana, let's start with you, Morgana, because the MUA and also the modeling / character actress they're two different worlds, but they also come together and, they meet and form a special relationship. So Morgana, how did you fall into becoming a character actress?
It was an interesting trajectory of things. My performance career didn't actually start in acting. I was actually I started as a stop motion animator. So early on, I was animating on shows like Robot Chicken and Moral Oral and a show called Frank and a whole bunch of those Adult Swim shows. I started that really early. I was like 17 or 18 when I began on those, and I really enjoyed those. I thought that was what I wanted to do with my career at first. But after doing it for a while, I realized that this is probably not the thing that I want to do with the rest of my life. But the thing that I loved most about it was being able to animate and give life to all these different sorts of characters. I would do like a scene that had such a wide variety of different types of characters. I got to create movement for and create sort of body expressions and such, so I realized that the acting element of that was what I enjoyed most. So when I went back to school and started doing stage work and things like that, the characters I tended to gravitate towards were ones that were very physical, the ones that basically you would build up from the ground up. Instead of it just being like another version of yourself and your day-to-day, they were characters that you really, from its very core, it's like, okay, I'm gonna be walking differently, I'm gonna be breathing differently, I'm gonna be speaking, moving. My entire energy for this character is going to change and be different, and that lent into playing a lot of eccentric roles on stage. At the same time that I was in my acting school, I was also studying to be an effects artist. So I did spend a few years in the trenches actually applying makeups and doing effects work myself. And those two kind of combined, where I was already a character actress doing things on stage, and I was working in the effects arena. So once people in the effects world kind of got an idea of what I was doing, they're like, oh, you're much more valuable to us underneath the makeup than on the floor making the stuff. So the very first studio I worked with was Amalgamated Dynamics, who's done like the Alien versus Predator films and Jumanji and all that stuff. And they threw me in my first project, and then it sort of just steamrolled from there into playing all these sort of bizarre, inhuman creature roles.
Wow. Oh my God.
That's awesome. Keaghlan, so you are you have an amazing portfolio. How did you get started becoming an MUA, especially for creatures and
Yeah.
fantasy characters?
In a similar fashion to Morgana, I started out as a performer first, and then they've realized that I was more valuable as a makeup artist. I started out as a musical theater performer. I was going to be on Broadway, and in the midst of going to school for acting and performing, I took classes as a requisite for stage makeup. And very quickly I realized how I had an affinity for it, how much I enjoyed it, and decided that like I could pursue acting and I could pursue makeup as well. And so I found the school, the Tom Savini Special Makeup Effects Program in Pennsylvania. And I ended up going there, and it kind of just snowballed from there. I got my hands on clay, I got my hands on paint, and just kind of really explored the world of being able to take the characters that I was already performing and translate them into physical beings that I could then, bring that to life as well. And so it was kind of a hand-in-hand experience for me to create characters internally and also externally. And then I slowly found myself getting more and more offers as an effects artist than I did as an actor, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And it's been 10 years of creating characters, and I ended up teaching at a makeup school up in San Francisco for 2 years, and was teaching everything from bridal to runway to photography to they tried to force me into hair, which that is not my bag. And also the end result was effects as well. And once I was done with that, I, moved back home to LA, and that's when kind of Face Off came knocking, and I found myself on Face Off, and it kind of just was, the rest is history. I've just been creating characters and stuff ever since. And then when I'm not doing that, I do try to still perform when I can here and there.
Right. So so I guess let's start with you with this one, Morgana, but this is for both of you ladies. You obviously work in film and TV, you work with cosplay, you work in cons. Is there a difference, or what do you see as the difference between, doing a character for film or television, or doing a character at a convention or for like a live event or something?
I think one of the things I love about doing cons, and I will never not do cosplay stuff at cons. I love doing it. I can be like in a full cosplay promoting another project that has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm cosplaying, because number one, it's a lot of fun, but number two, you have free reign to try something in a live environment. The first character I ever really got like a lot of attention for was doing the X-Men character Apocalypse on the San Diego Comic-Con floor. And like I had a full crew on this from cinema makeup school building me into this like giant, massive 7-foot tall behemoth of a character. So, proportionally they looked perfect. They looked like they stepped right off the comic book pages. And for me, because there wasn't the pressure of like, okay, we're filming this, we have to get this right for film, we have like this time limits. Instead, I'm like, okay, I'm this character. I have an audience of hundreds of thousands of people surrounding me, and I have the opportunity to just stay in character all day and have this massive, almost live theater sort of aspect of getting in a costume, becoming this character, and then just playing the entire day.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun, especially for this character who you could basically see from the other side of the convention hall. To experiment, and a lot of the demos that I've done, and I've done demos with Keaghlan as well, and like so many other artists for effects conventions and horror conventions, is that it's a testing ground. You have free reign to try characters that you kind of wished you would get hired to play or get hired to make, and rather than waiting for somebody to come around and you get having the opportunity to do this, it's like, okay, I'm going to show exactly what I want to do. Like, not wait for somebody else to like give me a concept or design. I'm going to do exactly what I want to do and place my character on the floor. And that goes with performance as well. I'm playing characters while I'm doing cosplay that are the sort of characters that I want people to be able to visualize me as for film and TV.
I love that idea. What about you, Keaghlan?
I could definitely echo a lot of those sentiments
Yeah.
from a creative element and a standpoint. As an effects artist in the industry, I'm so typically often required to creating a character for someone else's vision, and I'm often required to create stuff that doesn't necessarily always fit in line with my personal aesthetic, or necessarily my personal, like, my fandoms, or like just certain styles that I kind of have to like find myself being a versatile artist in the film industry and kind of creating whatever it is they want me to. Whereas doing convention work, I get to call the shots, I get to design the character how I want to do, I get to kind of show off my aesthetic personally, and it's also the aspect of the live theatrics of creating a character from the ground up in front of people and having an immediate reaction to that character. Whereas you could work on a film project, I have projects in the can that are from 3 or 4 years ago that I'll get emails for, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did do that, that's right. Whereas with cosplay, and with character creation at a convention, I get to produce a character and have 100,000 people on the floor see it then and there and get to interact with it. And there's something really, I think, magical about watching, especially the younger kids looking at these characters that they've only seen in a comic book or they've only seen in a video game coming to life before their very eyes. And there's something that's definitely very cathartic for me as first a theater performer and now a character creator to see, these things that I have in my mind kind of come to life. Because I'll take a character that I, have loved growing up and get to be able to do my spin on it. And, there's, Buffy doesn't exist anymore, and this different brands that these movies that I would have loved to be a part of that I, grew up revering, and being able to create those characters and be a little part of that. I got to work with Warner Brothers and the Buffy franchise at Comic-Con one year, and getting to create a character for a franchise that was so integral to me as an artist was just a dream come true. And so it's stuff like that that's really, I love working on films, but there's something that's kind of magical about getting to create characters on a convention floor.
And it just has a fan base behind it, but even for your original stuff, I mean, if you do a solid cosplay of a character that has a good fan base, it does get a lot of eyes on you. I've gotten more attention for
there's definitely an attention.
Yeah, cosplaying Marvel characters like Magic or Domino or something like that than the actual TV shows I've been on where I got paid and we're actually on TV. I have people who know me more for cosplaying characters as a fan than actually playing original characters that paid my rent. So
right,
in a way, it's a major marketing thing as well when you're doing this sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely.
So we all know that makeup, it's evolved over the years. I mean, you get different formulas, you get different, I myself am allergic to latex, but a lot of the prosthetics and the stuff that, and the glues and things, they've been kind of moving away from latex and gone into other materials. And we've all seen movies in which we can attest that makeup and applications and major applications, they have changed. I mean, look at Jack Nicholson from Batman and the first Batman and his unmoving face, and then you can move into The Dark Knight and you see that the scars are completely different, they're more realistic. So with that being said, let's talk about movement and realism and how that affects how you, Keaghlan, design things and what materials that you use. And then we'll go to Morgana and talk about how that affects your performance as an actor and how you move and utilize that character. So Keaghlan.
Yeah. I think it just I approach designing characters kind of with obviously the performance in mind and obviously with movement in mind. And there still is a place absolutely for foam latex and for, those types of pieces, but it is very much going in the way of silicone prosthetics and prostate transfer prosthetics and pieces that, are a little more thin, but it's you wouldn't necessarily do a super heavy built silicone prosthetic because that's a very weighty material and you lose movement with it. And so it's become a matter of figuring out kind of the right medium. And obviously for those that are allergic to it, you do work around those types of things. And the types of mediums definitely are dictated by first your actor, then your performance, and then the character as well. And so it's definitely like I still utilize foam latex. It's definitely very much a thing that's not often utilized, but it does have its place. And typically, like I will usually go into the realm of silicone and those prostate transfers for more realism. Like when I'm going for an old age makeup, or I'm going for like something that's a little more subtle, and you want to see that movement, and you can get really thin sheer pieces out of silicone when you do encapsulated silicone. And so it's just, yeah, a matter of kind of, we'll start out with a character design and then kind of from there figure out what best is suited for the piece. And, like I love utilizing prostate transfers because they're basically like temporary tattoos, and you can do a lot of those types of makeups very quickly and do, like have a lineup of people. And so it definitely does vary depending on the kind of overall look. And I look at every type of material as a different piece of my arsenal.
Okay.
And I would say, like, one of the major advantages to working with an artist like Keaghlan, who is also a performer and understands that aspect of things, is that if you're the more you're designing for the person, and the more you're thinking about the performance specifically, rather than just trying to make a cool sculpture that you're gluing on someone's face, the more you're going to get out of it. I'm on the other side, in the same way that Keaghlan is better at sculpting because she knows the performance. I've been able to work with sculptors and been able to kind of like work with them on a design while explaining, showing them, it's like, if you do this with this part of the sculpture, I can give you this sort of expression, or I can give the character this sort of energy. Or if you sculpt it a little bit more expressive in this way, I can give a much wider smile or grimace, different things we can do with teeth. So the collaborative effort is really great when working with this. The wonderful thing about working in the effects industry today is that with social media and with all these sort of effects groups you're in, it's a lot less secretive a process. People are able to share tips with each other. People are discovering things along the way. There are ways that people have been doing things since the 1920s that have not changed much. And then there are things that are changing every year. They're constantly updating adhesives. They're constantly updating formulas for foam latex that, like, some people say are much better. Some people are like, oh, it's not as good as they made it in like 94 or what have you. So there's still a lot of debates amongst that. But it is an interesting science that continuously keeps evolving. It's also necessary in the sense that you don't get as much time anymore to apply these makeups on sets. Everyone wants to make you move faster. It's like, it's a time is money sort of thing. When the effects industry really started in the days of Boris Karloff and Lon Chaney and everything, you used to be okay to like finance 8 months of research and development and have a 12-hour makeup application that Jack Pierce would do on Boris Karloff, and that would just be how it is. Now it's like, oh, okay, it takes you 4 hours to apply this makeup, you have to do it in 2. So I've been with artists who have to discover a new and innovative way of applying a makeup already created and designed on me on set, because they realize that it took too long the first day and they have to rethink things for the rest of production just to get it done.
Right.
So it is an ever evolving process, both in the actual materials you're working with and how you're doing it.
Right. So, Keaghlan, you had mentioned, Buffy was really influential to you. I mean, you guys are kind of very much in a niche part of the industry. Is there a specific event or a specific, fandom or something that inspired you to pursue what it is that you're pursuing? We can start with you, Keaghlan.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely there's that, like, Buffy was definitely like a very integral part of, I was shown it, probably too young by my babysitter, and definitely watched it from the beginning of the show to the end of the show. And it was the first real like franchise that made me realize, oh, this is somebody's job. Like, I had the Watcher's Diaries with all of the like makeup breakdowns in the books, and it was the first time I really like realized, oh, like, this is something that I could potentially do. I don't think I necessarily realized it consciously as I was growing up into it. And it was definitely something that I rediscovered as I, really got into makeup. But that was very much like, if I look at some of my own personal designs, they do end up, they're in a macabre sort of way, but there's still a sort of beauty to them if I look at my own aesthetic. And I definitely would say that's one of those things. And embarrassingly enough, I have to like also give an honorable mention to the Backstreet's Back video. If you remember that one, where it was the Universal monsters that they turned them all into. There was a behind the music video of that. And I don't mention it very often, but somebody brought it up not long ago. And I was like, you know what? If I'm really honest with my little weeb heart, like that was definitely an influential moment as a little baby, like watching, my favorite, the Backstreet Boys turning into monsters. And so I have like a weird dichotomy as a person where like I love monsters and horror, but I also love these really girly like kinds of things. Like I love musicals, but I love horror. I love Monster High dolls, but like give me some fake blood and gore. Like and definitely influenced who I am as a person and as a designer for sure.
Awesome.
Like you were a musical theater girl first and foremost. Horror is just a lovely sort of additional flavor to it.
Yeah.
You definitely give me Evil Dead the musical,
right?
It
was so funny. It was like literally like in our Discord chat yesterday, like we were having this long conversation about Broadway musicals because I feel like so many of us in the industry is like come from a theater and especially a musical theater background. And it's like, yeah, we have diverse interests.
Oh yeah. I mean, Little Shop of Horrors was definitely, and it still holds up to this day, but like that was definitely, I wanted to be both Audrey and the plant. Like I couldn't explain to you why, but.
Which is what has eventually led you to making sexy plant ladies. So,
there you go.
Making the best.
It's true.
Morgana, what did you have like something that really inspired you? Was like, that's what I want to do, because you do a very specific thing. I mean, and I do motion capture, so I understand like learning how to move like different creatures and embodying them, but wearing the costumes and everything is taking it to a whole other level.
It's funny, that wasn't the intention when I first got into school to play these sort of characters. It almost came as a surprise to me to like actually start like getting under prosthetics and making that sort of a niche thing. I never expected that, but it makes sense for me because what I was actually inspired by that really made me want to get into acting wasn't in film or TV. It was comic books. I've been a hardcore like Marvel Comics fan since I was little. I loved the X-Men. I loved Avengers. I loved anything that had like these sort of wild, cool looking, otherworldly characters that you wanted to read about every week who had these intense storylines. So for me, getting into acting, it was wanting to play those characters. I think seeing Mystique in the first X-Men films, that was undoubtedly like such. I remember, I specifically remember like the first scene in which she transforms from her human form into like that amazing blue makeup that looks amazing to this day. I'm like, oh my God, to play that sort of role in something incredible. And it's worth it. I mean, to play a character that cool, it's a very uncomfortable process to go through.
Well, wasn't it like an 8-hour process for her or something like that? And it was like the middle of winter where they were filming and they had to like throw a jacket on her every time they cut. And
yeah, no, she's a champion for going through that. But when I got into acting, that was what I wanted to do. And the funny thing is that a lot of people think of this stuff like, the idea of playing these sort of characters, of being an effects artist is niche, but it really isn't anymore. When you actually look at what the top grossing films are, the biggest movies that people are doing, are buying merchandise for and everything, they're all fantasy based. Yeah. They all have characters that have some sort of special effects makeup on,
really true.
or CG or something like that. So, as far as like that sort of genre goes, that have these sort of larger than life, inhuman sort of characters that have these interesting effects and effects augmented looks, these are our biggest films. These are the least niche films you can possibly get into. This is what pop culture is now. So it's nice to kind of transfer over to that from something that people are like, oh, so you're in like this small little genre of like niche horror. It's like, no, I'm kind of doing characters that are like what everyone's buying merchandise and walking around and blazing on their t-shirts. Like that's what I'm after. I'm after like I'm after the next Guardians of the Galaxy film or Suicide Squad or something like that. That's the big prize for me, is getting into something like that.
Yes.
I've also found myself in recent years like less involved in specifically horror and more in comedy than anything else. It's just all weird comedy. It's all like horror comedy or sci-fi comedy or fantasy comedy. Or yeah, Ned's a perfect example of that. You know, like side of a giant puppet for that, but it's for Disney. You know, it's not a niche show. It's Disney's like tentpole late night show. So yeah, this is what's popular right now, and I love it. I think it gives society a much needed escape.
Yeah, you mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy, and it got me thinking. One of my coworkers was in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 as a I don't remember what the alien species was. The gold people. He was like,
oh, cool.
Yeah, one of the gold people.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
they were.
Yeah. He was an extra, and it got me to thinking. And then shows like The Walking Dead and all that. Like, you have to have a whole like crew. Like, the makeup team must be huge. And like, how, Keaghlan, can you just give me a rundown on how that works? And if you're working on a movie that is like Guardians, where you have alien extras, not just like one.
I was like, even Captain Marvel, like they had all the Creed
with movies like of scale like that, they're usually going to have like it broken down into teams, basically, where you like obviously you have your department head and like your key makeup artists that are like leading everything, but then you're going to have like smaller departments that are going to like, they'll probably handle like aliens 1 through 5, and that's their job for each day. And like, you know, they're going to be there, and like that one person might literally just be there like, I did the hands, that was my day, is the hands, I had to make sure the hands matched every time, the hands, that was my job. So it's very much like it becomes a series of kind of, and it varies kind of film to film and like how each department head is, but usually it is very much like a like product line. Like everyone's got everyone's got a cog in the wheel, basically, where they're responsible for, you know, handling, you know, and it'll be up, you know, 30, 40 to 100 artists, depending on how big the production is, you know. So it's just, you know, unfortunately, I haven't been on like some of those bigger projects. It's definitely still goals of mine, but because a lot of that is union. But it's definitely like I've gotten to be like the one cog in the wheel, and so it's definitely a pretty impressive undertaking to organize all of that.
To be honest, I haven't even been on a machine.
And I'm sure one more guy can answer more to that.
You know,
Sorry, go ahead, Morgana. What were you saying?
Oh, I'm saying I haven't even been on a machine that big yet. That's like a Marvel film or a DC film or something. Even on the shows that I've been on, that like, you know, like Stand Against Evil, for instance, I was on for 3 seasons. You know, I played 9 different characters on that show. Every episode had a new creature with new effects and everything. While there were a lot of people involved in making the prosthetics, as far as the people who were on set with me, it was 2 people. It was 2 people handling this entire production who would get me in makeup, take me to set. If there was another thing, they might bring in like a person for a day. But you know, it's actually, for a lot of these productions, a lot of these TV shows, it's fairly small. And when you actually like, you know, you actually stay behind and look at the credits, even for a large production, even look at like a Marvel project in which you're actually looking at like the practical effects artists involved in something. Look at the amount of people it took to do the effect, like the practical effects. And then look how long it takes for all the names to go by on somebody who was rendering out digital. Like it's like 5 minutes.
Wall of font.
Wall of names of people who are like rendering things out and lighting something digitally. And, you know, it's a lot of work to do things in CGI. A lot of people like, because they're like, oh, you don't have to build all this stuff. We'll just do it in CGI. Like, it's that easy. But, you know, with effects, it is, you know, it is more of a process. It is the sort of thing where it's like, you know, you do have other, you know, variables that can go wrong with it, of course, like with anything. But what you get on set is what's in camera. And that makes all the difference, is that, you know, it could be 2, 3 people on set, but when you have it in the can, you know you have it. You don't have to guess. You don't have to like say it's like, oh, we'll try to fix this in post, or try to like increase, you know, try to modify this in some way. That's a really neat thing you get on set with the small crew that's there, is that they are providing you a otherworldly sort of character for your real world actors to interact with. And that, you know, that getting that genuine reaction out of my castmates when I show up in a full makeup is incredible, especially when it's like a horror project, because you can get genuine fear out of somebody. and I'll look after like a scene or something where that was really successful, that we got that. I'll see my effects artists grinning ear to ear that what they spent all day working on completely paid off.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned earlier, Morgana, you know, you sometimes love being able to work with the sculptor to be able to, you know, work together to create those characters. So Keaghlan, for you, you know, kind of walk us through, like, if you are working on a project, you know, you said, oh, sometimes people are giving you their image of what they want you to create. Like, what is the process of coming up with, you know, like I see all these amazing things behind Morgana right here. What is the process of coming up, like, okay, we have this creature and go.
So a lot of the times it comes down to like we'll get a script first. Obviously we start with a script, and the script could have as much description or as little description as the writer's chosen to. So in some cases it's literally a looming ominous figure appears, and you're responsible for figuring out what that luminous ominous figure appears looks like. And so first and foremost, I start with, you know, the director, or, you know, the writer, the creator, whoever is kind of backing it and approaching me with this project, and kind of being like, all right, well, like, do you have any imagery in mind? Do you have any like idea of what it is you want? Like, what influences are you looking towards and stuff like that? And so like sometimes it's as simple as like, well, I want a werewolf, and I'm like, okay, cool. Well, are we talking the howling werewolf? Are we talking the Lycans from Underworld? Like, and so I do try to like have a vast knowledge of creatures that are already in existence, just so I can kind of give them baselines basically, and then try to like synthesize something that works first and foremost with, you know, their idea, but then also their budget. The budget's going to dictate a lot of what I can physically do. And so I can't, you know, make a centaur or minotaur from Chronicles of Narnia on a Seussical the Musical budget. It's just not going to work. So it very much is kind of a language of you know, negotiation in a way when you first start out. Like, you'll create your renderings, you'll create your sketches. I'm better typically at just like throwing down clay and sculpting in clay to like show off a thing, because sometimes your 2D renderings versus the 3D renderings, they, you know, don't always match. And so I've definitely been approached with very vagues that like I'll create something with that vaguality, and then they're like, that's not what I wanted at all. I'm like, okay, well, you gave me adjectives. I can't work with adjectives. And so it's like, I wanted like a gaping void of an abyss of a mouth, and I'm like, those are descriptors, but they're not like effective in what
do you have
physically
a picture of this gaping mouth?
Yeah, you have a picture of this void of a creature. And so it really is kind of like a dance between, first and foremost, the creative department that, you know, is responsible for wanting the character, and then like ideally in a perfect world, I get to work with the performer. In some instances, I'm literally throwing the performer like after I've already made everything. In the better realm, they send me Morgana. I already have her live cast. I can work on it, and like we can work from there and have a discussion. And it just varies from show to show and kind of how much money is involved. And then unfortunately, the more money you get involved, the more minds are involved, and the more you find, like, a lot of the times when you see complaints about a movie and you're like, oh, this character, I really liked it, but it was kind of just muddy. And it's like, well, that's because there's probably 17 different people saying yes or no to it. And so we started out with this really cool kind of design, and it got watered down and watered down and watered down because it had to all these other people's mindsets and all these other people's ideas of what they wanted out of this character.
Right.
And so when you're not jumping through those hoops, and when it is just, hey, you have a director that says, I want you to give me what, like, I hired you because I trust your vision. Those are the dream projects for me, where I can just create a character and then present it to them and, you know, make tweaks here and there. So it'll start from first, you know, your design, then your sculpture, then you get into your mold making, and then your casting, and then your painting, and then finally the application. And so it's just kind of like all these steps to like get from, you know, a idea of this looming ominous figure to Morgana in the character.
So Morgana, once you are in the character, how do you go about figuring out that character's physicality?
Oh man, I mean, some of it I think about in advance based on the script. Sometimes I'll, you know, because you don't have a lot of time once you're in the makeup to actually work things out. You're kind of going right to sets. You do have to like kind of figure out as much as you can beforehand. But once you're actually in the makeup, I usually discover that a lot of the personality of the character and what I want to do is sculpted into it. The sculptor will have an idea of this character just as you did, and certain things that I would think about doing as far as like expressions and stuff won't look as good in reality as I thought they would in my head. The sculpture will actually kind of look better if I do a little something different with it, and that changes everything. That changes the energy. There are some characters that I thought were going to be more like menacing, stocky, sort of, you know, creepy characters, and then I try to do that and I'm like, oh, but this character has this great sort of mischievous eyebrow expression and grin on them. So instead of moving around stocky and slowly, all of a sudden they have a ton of energy behind them and they're reveling in the sort of horrors that they're creating rather than being this sort of dark, brooding, ominous, you know, creature. So a lot of that is really great. The more time I'm given with the character, the better. I usually try to get in, like, try to have set time set aside for me, so I at least have like an hour to sort of walk around the set and walk around the trailers, just to kind of get more of a feel for it before being dropped right in front of camera. Sometimes you luck out and you get like a show like Earth to Ned, where we actually got like 4 weeks of rehearsal time before actually starting the show. So I had a lot of time to figure out what I could do with that character and what worked best, what, you know, little tricks that I was able to do with maneuvering the puppet to get some cool stuff out of them. So that's wonderful when you actually have that opportunity to play along with that. But yeah, for a lot of it, you kind of have to drop into it immediately. And I've kind of over the years, you know, I've especially in creature work, kind of developed like a bag of tricks. You know, it's like, you know, kind of going into like my bag of tricks and being like, oh, I've discovered this cool sort of movement I did with this character. It might look really cool if I do it with this character and kind of do this spin on it. So you develop certain physicalities that you can mix and match to create an overall character that's outside of like, you know, a normal human movement.
Oh, wow. I love that.
So what would you say, like, I know it takes some of these applications takes hours and hours. I mean, I've seen them being done at conventions and stuff. Like, you'll come into the convention hall and you'll see that the models have already been like almost, you know, they've gotten a base coat on them.
Or the cinema art school where they have their booth every year, and just like every time you walk by, they're in a different phase of the application.
I've been in that booth many times for many hours.
Could you give us like a rundown of how does the day start, and then like how does it end? Like from the nascence of I got out of bed and I have to like make sure all my skin is like completely washed to I am now walking around the convention hall as freaking Thanos. Like,
well, I'll say that the fourth day is definitely a lot different than the first. The first, you are really like gung ho about doing this character and getting into it. You usually when you have a booth or something like that, you can get in early before the attendees. So the thing to note is that you're there to put on a show for the most part. Like you're displaying your talents in a way that people are going to stop by and watch and ask you questions. So no matter what, however long the process takes, a big part of the reason it's taking that long is because you're not 100% focused on doing this character. You are doing a performance of applying this makeup to a
Right.
character. So we get the boring stuff out of the way first. If I need to be putting a bald cap, if I need to have prep done on my face or anything like that, putting in contact lenses, the things that are less showy, that are, you know, less theatrical to watch. I've been in some makeups that they just wanted to, you know, that were meant to just get done fast for a photo, maybe 2.5 hours. I've been in some makeup applications that have gone as long as 7, in which the entire day was dedicated to getting this makeup done, and it wasn't finished until literally doors closed, and then we took the photos. And
Guilty.
what's that?
What'd you say, Keaghlan?
I was like, yeah, I'm guilty of that one on you.
Which ones took a long time? Which ones are like longest application? I forget which one we spent the most time on.
The Chaos Demon for sure took way longer than it needed to.
Yeah, but again, that was the sort of thing.
It was definitely, we did Monster Palooza.
Yeah, we did.
For Monster Palooza, it was. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't even know. But we did it twice, and the second time did not take as long because we were doing it on set versus Monster Palooza, which is a big social event in which a lot of people are coming up to us and saying hello and doing all of that. But yeah, I mean,
yeah,
we did get faster at some of them, like Thanos and Apocalypse. I did both of those at San Diego Comic-Con, and because we did those several days in a row, we got faster each time with it, and we were less worried about like taking our time to show the process and just getting me on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Those makeups you really feel after about 3 days straight of doing it, about walking around in them all day long with the square contact lenses in, doing the whole thing, getting it taken off at night. The biggest joke that I get at conventions when I'm in it is being asked if I want to do anything after the convention or to go somewhere fun in the costume. And the answer is hell no, I'm going to the hotel room and going to bed. So, you know, it's definitely it's an intense process, but it's very worth it for the reactions you get, and they vary. You know, again, like I was mentioning earlier, it would be nice to be able to have more time and do more complex makeups on sets, but that's what conventions are for, because you don't get 6 hours to apply a makeup on set. You get 2 max. So a lot of times, instead of having like multiple pieces that would probably move better, you get something like, I'll grab this guy over here. So this one is from Kukui the Boogeyman. That's one of the films that I did for Sci-Fi. And this is a few different pieces. So this jaw and the entire cowl around it is all one piece. It all comes together as one piece. And then this is just another single piece that goes over my face. So really, that's only 2 pieces you're trying to lock down. And if you had a lot more time, we probably could have done something that was closer to my face, that would have a lot more facial expression and all of that. But it would have taken, the more pieces we added into it, the more, application time, the longer it would take to get everything together.
Yeah.
So this is a character that was created that was really effective, but was also designed specifically so we can apply it on set very quickly.
Right. So Keaghlan, and obviously Morgana as well, but starting with you, because I know we asked this of so many of our artistic guests, what is maybe like the weirdest or most unique or most challenging, or just really stuck with you creation you've had to make?
The weirdest one was definitely, I had to make a, like I don't know if it's appropriate to say on Twitch, but
we're 18 and up, so
okay, cool. So the weirdest one I did, I had to make a dildo mom and dad, where they were representations of dildos, basically, where I had giant penis hands for both mom and dad, and they were painted respectively pink and blue, and I had to create these elongated, everything had to be more phallic, and so like a very elongated chin with kind of like ball chin vibes, and then like a long nose. Got rid of their brows, got rid of their ears to make them look very like just shapeless.
Right.
And spray like airbrush them pink and blue. And that was for a short film that I did that actually ended up getting accepted at the Tribeca Film Festival with Karen Gillan of Guardians of the Galaxy fame. So that one's definitely like the weirdest one I had to do. I also had to do it in like a matter of a week.
Oh, wow.
So that one's definitely stuck with me. It's the one that I get the most like pokes about, like asking about it.
I can't understand why.
I have no idea. People, we're not all children. Right. But that's definitely probably the weirdest one I've had to do. Creatively, it was not necessarily like the most like intricate. I did have to create a like foam wig that's like kind of like the drag wigs, like the big foam ones that are like huge and create like basically sculpted out of craft foam into like the curls and the waves and stuff like that. And so that was kind of neat and fun. I kept trying to like pitch them like a fun sketch comedy with it for later, but we'll see. Mr. and Mrs. Dickons, but it's fine. As far as the other ones, I unfortunately that's the one that sticks out the most.
What about for you, Morgana? Is there a creature that's just really
one of my most memorable shoots was actually my very first one. The very first professional like SAG set that I was on was for any gaming fans out there, it was the live action trailer for the game The Evil Within. And I played the creature Laura in that, who was like this four-armed, like long-haired demon girl that like comes out of like this puddle of blood and terrifying game.
I love that one.
Yeah, the game's absolutely horrifying. This was the first gig I ever did. I did this with Studio ADI. And the way it was set up for me to practically rise out of a flat puddle of blood was to get me all done up, all done up with like, the long wig, the extra arms, pretty much completely naked on my very first set. So that got rid of any fears I had about, body insecurity on set really fast. It's just like, you're very fast with a fast crew, with an award-winning director, and you're naked. So
the learning clip.
Yeah, just right into the deep end. But I went from walked right out of the makeup chamber into a giant 7-foot deep vat of fake blood. So I had a little ladder in there. It was not Caro syrup. It was like Methicil. It was like a bath oil sort of substance that was tinted a deep blood red. And no, it felt amazing because they heated it up. So I got into a giant tank of heated bath oil and submerged myself into this blood where I was meant to hold my breath underneath, and then the AD, when they were ready, would knock twice on it for me to slowly rise up from this like giant vat of blood and crawl out of it and like do this like lunge towards camera. So in the commercial, it looks like a flat puddle that I'm rising out of, but really I was in a 7-foot tank of red Methicil blood that I kept doing take after take and would, like a slip and slide because it's so slippery, almost slip and slide down this.
Wow.
Because it's oil,
yeah.
So it was really fun. It was really cool, and it was really weird. And for my very first project ever to not be like a lame sort of, local Dairy Queen commercial or something like that, but instead be this really bizarre, super as bloody as you can possibly get commercial for the Evil Within. It was awesome, and it's still like a fan favorite. I still get like autograph requests and stuff of like the one of the behind the scenes images of Laura. So that was really cool, and I think they used a lot of the movement and stuff like that for for game stuff, which is neat.
That's so cool. Well, oh my gosh, you guys were so amazing. We could talk for like another 4 hours about all of this stuff. Thank you so much for coming out. Keaghlan, where can we find you on social media? How can people see your work and maybe get in touch if they're interested in maybe becoming a makeup effects artist?
Yeah, so you can find me at on Instagram at Red Till Dead Design. You can find me on Twitter at Keaghlan Ashley. You can find me on TikTok at Red Till Dead Design. You can find me on I do have a Twitch. It's still new. I'm still getting used to it. So it's at Twitch at Red Till Dead Design as well. Basically, you can Google my name. I am the only one. So all of my links will be there as well.
Awesome. And Morgana?
I'm most active on Instagram, which is Ignisgram, and Twitter at IgnisTwotes. And you can see me currently on Disney Plus puppeteering Ned in Earth to Ned. So be sure to watch that.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again so much. And I know we would, Genevieve, love to have you back on at some point for sure. Okay. All right. So guys, you've got like 35 minutes before you need to be back here for Realms of Ukador at 6:30. So you can enter, Genevieve, the raffle?
Yes, we have a raffle. So you might have 35 minutes before the next show, but you only have till right now to join into the raffle.
Yeah.
I don't mean to like
yeah
put that much pressure on y'all.
No pressure. No pressure.
But please do it now. If you want to enter the raffle code is makeup.
Yes.
So please type that into the chat to enter. The code is makeup.
And Chris will announce it
at the beginning of Realms of Ukador.
Yay! All right. So next week we will be back, of course, again, as always, with another amazing episode about something of which I am not remembering what it is right now.
About a thing. Actually, we are currently discussing if we're going to switch some things around.
We have some very special guests in the works for you all, and so we're currently working around their production schedules. So that will dictate what the next couple of weeks are going to be, but we promise you it's going to be exciting. So thank you all again for tuning in. Saw you.
Bye.